This is When I Grow Up with Paul Glazby.
Daryl, welcome to the When I Grow Up podcast.
Thanks, mate.
So I was lucky enough to meet you through our kids.
Yep.
Eden and Paige, shout out to them. They're having a sleepover tonight, aren't they?
They are indeed.
Excellent. So, yeah, your story is you relatively young age. You went in the army.
Yep.
How did that come about?
I think, I don't know, I think when you're a kid and people are like, oh, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a fireman, I want to be in the army, I just never grew out of it,
Right,
basically.
okay.
So I kind of just wanted to be in the army, and it was, I think when I first left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I took a year off. I got into a few uni, courses, but didn't really want to do any of those things, to be honest. I just did it because everyone else was, getting into uni.
Yep.
So I took a year off, worked retail, and then at the end of that year, I was just like, stuff it, I want to do the army. And so, yeah, joined the army.
Right.
Yeah, did all the testing, and they got notified that I'd, made the cut for officer selection.
Yep.
And so, so went through the officer selection process, and then ended up at the Defence Force Academy. Yeah, where I spent 3 years at ADFA and then another year at Duntroon.
Okay.
And then I came out the other end as a army officer, so an infantry officer.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. And then, so by the time you'd gone through all that, is that like, how long's that sort of process?
Yeah, you do 3 years. So when you go to ADFA, which stands for the Australian Defence Force Academy, so it's in Canberra, it's kind of like a university.
Right.
But it's...
So is that why you got the officer status then? Because
that was part of it, yeah. So yeah. I think it's based on your your scores when you leave school and that kind of stuff, and then they do a bunch of aptitude tests.
Because I had a mate back in England, and he was a captain in the army.
Yep.
And like a tank, the is it a battalion, the tanks? Like with and he was he was in charge of all that.
Yeah, right.
But he went into the army as an officer because he'd been through university and everything before.
Yeah.
So he bypassed.
Yep. There's a few different pathways, and Australia does it the same way. You can, most of the time, most of the officers are what they call general service officers, so they'll go through ADFA, or sometimes you can go straight to Duntroon. Instead of doing the uni degree as well, you can just go straight to Duntroon and do your 18 months worth of training. I think it's still 18 months, I'm not sure, but it was back when I was in. Some people can also do uni in a civilian university and then also apply and come across and kind of do their army time,
right?
As well, like the training at Duntroon as well. Yeah, there's a few different pathways.
And then once you're an officer, what were you doing?
Yeah, sure. So your first job out is typically a platoon commander, and so as an infantry officer, you go to the infantry battalions. So there's a few different infantry battalions around Australia. When I was I went up to Darwin and spent time in one of the Darwin infantry battalions there. And so you become a platoon commander. And a platoon commander, you're in charge of about 30 soldiers. Okay. Yeah, so you have 3 sections of soldiers. Sections are about 8 to 9, sometimes 10, man sections. Yep. And then you usually have a platoon sergeant and a few other headquarters staff with you as well. And so it's about 30 people. I was a mechanised platoon commander, so I went to 5-7, and then the battalion kind of changed, and I ended up staying with 7 RAR, which stands for Royal Australian Regiment, which is just the infantry battalion there. And it was a mechanised one, so I also did, we worked with armoured personnel carriers, so APCs.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so as well as my 30 soldiers, we'd have 4 APCs. Right. And so I'd have one of my sections each would have an APC, and the soldiers would be in that. Right. And then the platoon headquarters would have an APC as well. Right. So, yeah.
And then you ended up in, if I remember it right, was it Afghanistan you went to? Or
yeah, so I went to, my first deployment was to East Timor.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that was a peacekeeping mission there. Yeah. And so I was the mechanised QRF, which stands for Quick Reaction Force platoon commander. I was East Timor, and then did that, I think it was about 7 months all up, I think. And then back to Australia, did a few other postings, and then ended up going to Afghanistan as well for a deployment as well.
hectic?
We were pretty lucky on our deployment, I think. So at the time I was a captain, so I'd been promoted to captain. I was what they call a mentoring platoon commander. So our main role was mentoring the Afghan National Army.
Right.
So they'd do their basic training. So the Afghan soldiers would do their basic training, and it wasn't as intense as like Australian soldiers' basic training. It was really just the basics, and then they'd send them out to different areas around Afghanistan. And so we were in Uruzgan province, and out to the different patrol bases. And so they'd arrive at the patrol bases, and we would essentially kind of take them from where they were at their basic level and kind of continue their training whilst kind of securing the area and patrolling and, keeping the area secure,
must
keep
be
the Taliban away, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But it must be, I'm trying to think of like an analogy, like trying to get those guys to some sort of level while you're still trying to keep the place secure. It's like an overflowing bucket and you're just catching it and pouring it back into the bucket. Like it's just...
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like, I don't know, using an analogy like patching a leaky ship kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's, it was, and
I mean, what were their sort of, like, let's say the average Afghan soldier, when are they in like flip-flops and an Adidas t-shirt, or like
they would get kitted out. They were kitted out reasonably well. Okay. Like, I think there was a lot of money pouring into Afghanistan, and so that was all funded by the coalition forces. And so they were kitted out. They had weapons and stuff. And they weren't the best soldiers though. Like, so we'd like typically when we'd go on patrol with them, we would with their weapons, we would tell them to not put a round in the chamber, basically. And the reason we do that was because they would patrol with their fingers on the trigger. Do you know what I mean? Like, the safety catches, you never knew if they were on or off and that. Right. And then you'd be patrolling and one of them behind you could, squeeze the trigger when they're stepping over something and shoot a round off or something. So what we would typically do is tell them to put a magazine on their weapon, but not cycle the bolt. Right. So then the round wouldn't be in the chamber. Right. And so then when we started to get shot at, then we tell them to, go to action and actually, cycle the weapon and put a round in, so you could actually hear it, kind of noise, so you knew that, all right, now it's on. And you just have to watch, bullets coming your way, but also bullets going out the other way.
Or stand behind them.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, you would. You just have to be aware of where they were and just coordinate them. But, some of them were pretty good. They were pretty brave soldiers. They weren't very good soldiers, but they were brave. I think, some of them, they have their, religion, they're all Muslim. They believe in, their God, and they had this attitude of inshallah, I think that's how you say it, which is just, God willing, will I live or die? Oh, well, God willing, you know what I mean? And so some of them were pretty brave guys, but just not disciplined.
Well, I think if you believe that when you die you've got, 30 virgins waiting for you, or whatever it is, then you probably don't give
exactly mate.
care too much.
So but it was interesting. It was an interesting deployment. I think it was something that, like, professionally, as a soldier, you train to go to war. Like, it's what you do every day. Do you know what I mean? When you're in the barracks and that kind of stuff. And so most soldiers want to experience, combat or deployments and those kind of things as well. It's kind of like, you play basketball, you train every single day, but you never get to play a game.
Well, I remember my friend saying that, like, one of the things that he always regretted was that he never saw any combat. And it's like a boxer training and never having a fight.
Exactly. Similar analogy. And so I mean, I was really lucky to get both deployments. I enjoyed them. Particularly as a captain. When you go to a captain, you don't normally get to command soldiers in direct command. Okay. But they made this construct of mentoring, team leaders, and I had about 30 soldiers. So even though I wasn't technically a platoon commander, it was very similar to a platoon commander role. Like, I had about 30 soldiers under my command, and we just,
I know when I read, Jocko Willink.
Yep.
His is it Extreme Ownership, that book?
Yeah.
And amazing book, to sort of get how they tell the war story, but then tie it into like a business lesson. I read that, not that long ago, and I went on a cruise. I read it on that. I couldn't put it down. But in that they're saying about how, you know, they never knew who they could trust.
Yeah.
You know, like, so you got these Afghan soldiers that you, like, were they there as like a, you know, I mean, did you have that kind of?
We did. So we were lucky where we were. We had, so I was at a patrol base where there was like 4 hard points around the patrol base, and so, you know, like every night we would those hard points would be manned, and so we didn't have enough soldiers to man all of them ourselves, but we would typically man one of the strong points, and then we'd have like a roving patrol of my soldiers that would go around and just check on the Afghan soldiers on the patrol points to make sure that they were, you know, awake and actually providing some security and that kind of stuff. But there was reports. Sorry, the reason I bring that up is because there was reports that came out that there was this insider threat that the Taliban units had either infiltrated the Afghan National Army or had, you know, threatened the families of people in the National Army to, you know, to kill soldiers, and so they'd call it a green on blue threat. So blue on blue is like friendly force shooting friendly force. Green on blue is like another army, you know, kind of, you know, green on blue threat. And so we were told that was a threat. So our guys, when they would patrol around, would just obviously be aware of that, because you're really, you know, super vulnerable. Everyone's asleep. You know what I mean? They could walk into where you're sleeping and shoot you all. So, you know, part of what they would do was just keep an eye on everything, and so that we'd patrol around and just make sure that was the case. The deployment after mine, so we'd gotten back, and then the following deployment, there was actually green on blues and Australian soldiers shot, and so one of the guys who I was friends with and went through training with, Bryce Duffy, and a number of others were shot. I think they'd landed in I don't know the exact story. I think they'd landed in a patrol base, and one of the Afghan soldiers just, you know, sprayed a burst into a whole bunch of them basically and killed a number of Australian soldiers. So it was a credible threat. It, you know, did take a few lives, unfortunately.
Jesus. Yeah. So so then after Afghanistan, did you have any?
Yeah, so after Afghanistan, I did no more deployments.
Yep.
I did come back, and I was lucky enough to get a posting to Papua New Guinea, and that wasn't a deployment. I was actually, you know, posted into a Papua New Guinean infantry battalion as a liaison officer, and so I worked with, you know, Papua New Guinean Defence Force, like an Papua New Guinean infantry battalion, 1 RPIR in Moresby for about 2 years. Just
and had you met Brooke by this point?
Yeah, so I met Brooke prior to going to Timor, actually. So before we went to Timor, I'd met Brooke prior to moving up to Darwin, and
so you've been with her for a long time then?
Yes, I think since 2007.
Right.
I think, yeah. And so I'd met her, and then she came up to Darwin, followed me up to Darwin because that was my first posting, and then I left like 3 months later to go to Timor for like 7 months.
Well, left her in Darwin.
Yeah. Well, she was keen to move out of Sydney anyway, so she was looking for something different. So I think the adventure kind of suited her. But yeah, we spent a lot of time away, and you know, even continued to. I think in the army, and that was one of the reasons why I left. Yeah. I think in the army, it was not uncommon to spend 6 months of every year not at home. And if you weren't on deployments, you were on training exercises or on courses and that kind of stuff. And so it's tough on family life being in the army for sure. Yeah.
I watched was it American Sniper? You ever watched that?
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. It'd been out for years, and it's just one of them films I'd never seen. Seen. And then, like, I mean, I'm not going to spoiler alert, but like when he gets right to the end, I'm like, fuck! I didn't see that coming.
No, you don't. No. Yeah, no, it's a great movie. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just a really good example. I mean, that was extreme sort of pressure on and he just couldn't give it up, could he? I mean, he was like addicted to
adrenaline junkie kind of. Yeah. Yep.
Should have got him. Could have stayed at home and played with that. We'll come to that later. So you finally come out of the army.
Yep.
And then, so when we had our catch up and you were filling me in on what you've been doing, so you were like, I've got this right into like self-taught IT teacher.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So,
just run me through that.
Yeah. So I always enjoyed instructing in the army. I enjoy so when I was looking to get out of the army, I thought, I was like, well, what do I do? You know what I mean? I could probably slip into middle management somewhere, but I didn't think I'd enjoy that. But because I enjoyed instructing, the natural kind of leap that I made was, maybe I'll enjoy teaching. And so I studied a diploma of education and got qualifications to teach secondary school, and then taught secondary school for, I don't know, I think it was about 6 months, and realised that I hated teaching secondary school. It's like the kids in secondary school were not like the soldiers in the army, I don't know what I was thinking. And,
It'd be good if some of them went in the army for a while.
Oh, absolutely, mate. But, I was a bit of a rat bag at school as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, a lot of us were. And I think I'd forgotten, maybe watched one too many movies like Coach Carter and those kind of things and just gone, I can, make a difference and be that awesome teacher. But it wasn't for me, I think. But I still enjoyed teaching. Anyway, so I ended up, one of the subjects that I did in my diploma of education was IT, because I'd done IT as an undergraduate kind of subject when I was doing uni way back at ADFA. And there was a few programming classes in there, and I quite enjoyed them, quite liked them. And that's kind of where I first got exposed to computer programming. We ended up going on a holiday, like a caravanning kind of holiday for about 6 months. And I ended up getting some work, like doing some remote work for the army, building like internal websites and that kind of stuff. And because I'd done a little bit of programming, I kind of knew a little bit. But then I soon got to this stage where I just needed to learn more than what I actually knew. And so I just kind of self-taught, just consumed online courses about web programming and that kind of stuff. And just learned more and more. And probably for about 6 months while I was away, I just did a lot of courses on web development. Right. Then when we were coming back from the holiday, I ended up applying for a job, an IT job. It was just a general IT job, but it was with TAFE, North Queensland. And I soon found out it was for the Diploma of Web Development. And so, I went in and they interviewed me and were like, can you do, this programming language and this one and this one? And I was like, yeah, I can do those.
I'm guessing you couldn't.
No, I could. I could probably do, there was probably a list of about 6. And I could probably do 4 of them. Okay. I'd say. Yep. And then the other 2, I was like, I can't do them, but I was just, I
can learn.
Yeah, I could do them, no worries. And I knew I could learn. These programming languages. And so I just said, I could do them. So I got the job. And then for most of the course, it was fine. Like I knew more than enough to teach the Diploma of Web Development. And for the subjects I didn't know, I was just, a few weeks ahead of the students, kind of learning the content and then teaching it. And, it's a funny thing when you teach. I think the process of teaching something
helps you learn.
It. It helps cement the concepts.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the best way to learn is to teach. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and so that helped me a lot. I think my programming and web development skills went up a lot just from teaching that course. And then that contract finished up, and I ended up just doing freelance web development. And so for a few years, I just did freelance web development just for small businesses and that kind of stuff, just building websites for people. And so just mostly self-taught and just kept doing that stuff. I think I ended up getting into game development. I thought I was building websites, and then I think it was right around the time that VR came out. I don't know if you remember, VR kind of had this explosion, maybe like, I don't know, 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Okay.
And I was like, websites are cool, but, building computer games, and VR computer games sounds a lot better. And so I just kind of taught myself game development as well, and just kind of got, deep into game development, and just, and just lucky, man. There's so many resources online, and now far more, even more than when there were,
Well, now don't you just put it into Chat GPT and it just does it for you?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. You can. Helps to know a bit of code, but yeah.
So in terms of the games, you had some
so
like successes then, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think I was learning game development, and there was kind of this explosion of mobile gaming kind of taking place in the market at the time. Now, one of the jobs that I did in defence prior to leaving was working in defence simulations and that kind of stuff. So I was working in some of the big defence simulation centres, and I just kind of drew on my experience from defence and what I saw in defence simulation, and thought, you know what, like, I think we could do training better with mobile simulations. I think that most of defence simulation is these big, large infrastructure kind of simulation systems. So like your shooting simulation system, it's like a big warehouse. If you imagine, there's lots of expensive simulation guns in there.
Yeah.
But it's all centrally controlled, and soldiers can't just turn up to it and just shoot whenever they want. It has to be booked by, like the chain of command, and then the soldiers get in there and they, attend as a group of 30 sometimes, like a company's worth of soldiers, 100 soldiers for a few hours, and they rotate through.
A bit like when a company does Laser Quest, they have to go and...
It's, it's actually kind of a similar concept to that. Yeah, very similar concept to that. But the whole point is that you get this throughput constraint, and so that all the soldiers can't train whenever they want. And so I think I saw an opportunity to do mobile simulations, to create similar kind of simulations, but make them mobile, like on mobile phones. And so that was kind of the thought experiment, if you like, of that concept. And so we built out 2 applications. One was it's like a procedural trainer to help soldiers call in indirect fire.
Was that the mortar thing?
Yeah, mortars and artillery fire and that kind of stuff. So there's a process called like call for fire, and all armies do it. And essentially, I mean, it might be changing now a little bit with newer technology, but the process is still very much the same. So you will identify a target on the battlefield. You identify, where it is, and usually that could be a grid reference to the target, or it could be a direction and bearing from your position. And then you send that through radio commands to the fire control, kind of unit, or the artillery unit. And then what they do is they fire around based on where you've said the target is. Now, most of the time, unless you're perfect with your target identification, most of the time that round's going to land off. Yeah. And so then there's a set procedure to help soldiers guide the rounds onto the target, and it's a certain procedure and a way to call that in on a radio, and it's a little bit complicated, but it's kind of a relatively easy skill that you can pick up if you do more repetitions of it. But the problem is most people don't get to do the reps on that system, and so the mobile app we created just helps soldiers practice that process. Right. So calling in artillery fire, and coordinating artillery fire onto a target or mortar fire. It's a similar process. And
is that the one do they use that?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. We ended up building this application. We went to Australian Defence Force, and we got selected as an innovation hub. They had this like defence innovation hub kind of thing, and we got selected as a finalist, and they said, yeah, that's great. This is a great idea. They put us up for, they said, right, we're going to roll out a trial, and we got, passed along to Army headquarters, where, to be honest, we got stuffed around for about 8 or 9 months, where it just passed from, staff officer to staff officer, just, like pencil pushers doing nothing, basically. And they're just not incentivized to focus on innovation. And so we got stuffed around, and it ended up going nowhere. So the defence ended up doing nothing with it. So we just thought, stuff it, we're going to release it on the App Store. Like, we've got this whole app built. Yep. So we released it on the App Store, and it's been on there for maybe 4 years now. And it's doing pretty well. Like, it's, and most of the people that use it are soldiers or ex-soldiers. Right. A lot of serving people use it. So, and we get emails and messages from soldiers around the world, in the UK, US, Canada, soldiers using this to practice calling fire and practicing
so basically
their skills.
All the other soldiers in the world are getting better, and the Australians.
To be honest, the Australian Army are using it as well.
Right.
Like, we know soldiers are using it there. Yeah. The problem is there's no budget for it. There's no project for this, application, and so the soldiers are buying it out of their own pockets. And
it just seems bananas, doesn't it? Like, we were just talking earlier about like Japan have got this electromagnetic gun, and they can't help you fire your rounds better. Like,
mate, I could talk all night about the broken system of innovation in defence, I suppose. But it's doing well. I think the application's doing. I'm glad we released it on the App Store, because I'm glad we were able to get it out, and it's really nice to see it being used and it providing value to soldiers and that. And it's, I was looking at the stats the other day, and it's probably been downloaded over 40,000 times.
Well, it must be comforting to know that the rounds are getting to the target quicker because of you.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's it's good. Yeah. It's good to see it out there.
And then the other, so your next app.
Yeah, the other app is a shooting simulation system. Right. So, to be honest, it was actually the first idea that we had. The difficulty with it was that we realised pretty quickly that it wouldn't just be software based, that we needed to build a physical product to attach it to a firearm. And so the general concept is that you download the application to your mobile phone, and then you attach your mobile phone to the firearm, and then it uses like VR technology to track the phone's position. So
a little bit like a Wii.
Yeah, kind of like a Wii, but the screen's on the mobile screen. Yep. And so it tracks the phone's position, and then it also listens for a dry fire noise, so the click of a firearm, and then that fires a shot into the simulation. And so what it enables you to do is practice shooting without ammunition. Do you know what I mean? Like, because shooting's a really hard skill to learn, because the hardest thing about it is not learning to shoot. It's just a basic kind of physical skill that you learn, but it's more just to get the reps in. And like in the army, we'd shoot thousands of rounds. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you had rounds to shoot. But what happens is you shoot a lot of rounds at the start of the year, and then you might not shoot for another 6 months, or like it's even sometimes 12 months for some units. And so you get this massive skill fade that happens throughout that time. And
then when you need to do it
again, that they have this kind of model of just-in-time training where you shoot and you do a qualification shoot.
Like you when you were working at TAFE.
Exactly, mate. Exactly, just like me. Yep.
Studying the night before. So what
right.
you do is...
That's right, yeah. And so, you do the test, get the score that you needed, and then the skills would fade over that time. And so soldiers never progress past a certain point in shooting because they kind of shoot to their level of skill, and then over 12 months their skill kind of drops off, and then they get to the range again after 6 months, and then they spend most of their rounds learning to get back to the stage that they were at before, I suppose. A
bit like going in the gym, building your biceps, then not training for 6 months and they atrophy, and then you've got to go,
pretty much.
The thing is with shooting, I always think, like, shooting a target is one thing, but like then in real life, when you've got someone running towards you with a machete or another gun, like that must be fucking horrendous.
Yeah, there's a lot of shooting's a funny skill because it's like you think of it as like this violent kind of big muscle skill, but a lot of the time, particularly when you're doing long distance shooting, a lot of close quarter shooting is still a lot of muscle memory, but long distance shooting is it's a very fine motor skill. The slightest movement, do you know what I mean, or flinch or snatch of the trigger will actually pull the rifle off target, and your rounds will go away. And the contradiction there is that when you're under stress, do you know what I mean? Like it's your body kind of you lose fine motor control. I think it's just a natural thing that happens to people when they get their adrenaline up, is they lose that fine motor control. And so it is a difficult skill. Like when I even remember, prior to the deployments in Afghan, we would do, we would do physical exercise to get, puffed and like exhausted, and then kind of trying to run into the sim centers and try and, shoot and fight, when you're exhausted, and heaving for air as well. Because that's the other thing as well. Like when you practice shooting on a static range, you go through a breathing process, you breathe in, you breathe out slowly, you exhale all your air, then you squeeze a round off. It's a very controlled thing. But when you're in a firefight, crawling around, you got body armor, like 30, 40 kilos of gear you're carrying at the same time. You're just heaving and huffing and puffing. And so it's kind of a different skill. You've kind of got to learn to hold your breath. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd be puffing, hold your breath, and then, fire off some shots. So it's different process.
I got into archery for a while. I just got busy and sort of, but my daughter Eden said to me this morning, because the bow's in the gym, and she's like, Daddy, you've not done that for ages. I'm like, yeah, I need to get back into it. But I got to a point like I could, in fact, if you next time you come to my place, I'll show you. I've got a Robin Hood. They call it Robin Hood, where you shoot an arrow down the back of the other arrow. So I've got these two arrows that are fused together.
Yeah, and you did it.
And not on purpose. I mean,
Right,
kind of on purpose, because you're always trying to bullseye.
Yeah.
But I'd only been going, I think it was my third time there.
Yep.
And we were shooting maybe, I think it might have been 30 meters. So it's not a massive thing, but a lot of people that were there, and a lot of people were using recurve bows.
Right.
Like the Robin Hood style, like just
okay. Like not the compound ones.
Not the compound, no, just the recurve. So it's
right.
like just the bent sort of thing with the, and that must be even more difficult because you've literally got nothing to, you're just using the sort of trajectory, like to, the sort of natural arc it in, but so they got these targets on these massive bales of hay. 30 meters away, and it's all everyone's got to fire their arrows, then they go clear, and then you can go and fetch your arrows and all this. So, but sometimes I feel like I'm kissed on the cock because I've gone to this place to like have a go. Yeah. And when I got there was this kid kind of like hanging around at the gate. So I went through because I'd got an appointment with the guy that was running the thing, and I get up there, and then we started talking, and then this kid who I'd seen at the gate like appears, like he'd sort of followed me up a few minutes later, and so me and Graham are talking, and this kid is like, look, I'm moving interstate, I'm clearing my garage out. He said, I've had this bow for years, I've not used it. He said, I just wanted to donate it to the club. So anyway, he leaves, and I mean the case alone must have been $200. Wow. And he opens it up, and there's this, I can't remember the brand, but anyway, this beautiful compound bow. This kid had said it needs restringing because it had the string had broke. Yep. And so anyway, I said to Graham, I said, I'll buy that off you. So he went, well, it's not my decision. So he rang the manager of the club, and he's like, someone's just donated a bow, but there's a guy who says he'll buy it. So he went, $100. So I got this bow for $100, wow. Right? And then I took it to this guy. God, what's his name now? Anyway, he's renowned around like the Gold Coast. He's this, not Denver. His name's something like Denver or. Anyway, he's got this shop up in Coomera where he does all the
bow specialist.
He sets all the bows up. So he did all this stuff to it, and I spent maybe another $300 on it. Yeah. But I got this amazing bow now with the sight and yeah. And I bought the trigger. You put that's around your wrist, and you hook it on, and you when you're ready, you just flick your finger.
You don't hold the string, do you? You kind of hold the string.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so anyway, so I get this bow, and then I go to this range up in Pimpamar. It was. Yeah, right. And so there's these. We're all lined up, and there's these other people in the thing. That they not only were they not hitting the target, they weren't even hitting the bale of hay. They were sending them over the top or down the side. But I've got this compound bow, so I'm there like fucking Arnie in Commando or something, or like Rambo 2. Like, like bullseyeing it every time. And like there's people going, how long have you been doing it? I'm going, this is my first time. So anyway, the next week I'm there, and I fire this arrow, and you just heard it was like a different noise. Instead of like the as it hits the bale of hay, it was like, and this guy, he's like, I think you just Robin Hooded that. Because obviously he's heard it before. And I'm like, what do you mean? He went, wait till we get down there. So we go down, and then the arrows. And the other thing is as well, this woman, she said to me, that not that particular time, but another, she went, look how small your arrows are. And I went, what do you mean? She went, well, they're tiny. Because it was this compound bow, so it's so powerful.
Going right in.
Everyone else's arrows were going into the bale of hay maybe in 2 inches, but mine were just like burying half the arrow. Right, so there's only this much arrow sticking out, and I'm having to pull them out. But this arrow was stuck out this far because it had fused together.
Stuck on the back.
And this guy, he said, look, you can, he said, that one's fucked. He said, but your other one, you can save it. I went, no, don't pull it apart. Yeah. I said, I'm keeping that. So in fact, I used to have it in the office, but I took it home, and it's in the gym now. So there's perfectly fused together. Right.
Robin Hood.
Yeah, Robin Hood. And he said, there's people shoot arrows all their life, never do that. He says, you've done it your third time.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
Miss you calling.
Yeah. It's ever since I watched Rambo 2, I've been obsessed with the bow. But I would love to get into shooting, but you can't. Yeah. Well, apparently you can do it here. Like I sold a house for a guy recently, and he had a gun, and he wanted to get me signed up, but he's moved to Sydney.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it. It's a bit more of a process. Like you know, like I've got a rifle, and I go shooting every now and then. It's harder though, depending on the caliber. Like if you, like on the Gold Coast, you can go to, I think some of the pistol clubs you can shoot up to a 22 caliber rifle, so only really small calibers. Whereas if you want to shoot anything larger, the indoor ranges are just not cut out for that.
Right.
So you'd need to head out to, you know,
Pack fair.
yeah. But you can do it. It's hard to do it though. And the other thing is ammunition's expensive as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, one of the biggest scams. So my dad came to Australia back in Eden was only a baby, so it's like 10 years ago. And he still talks about the flight now. Oh, that flight. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I did it 10 years ago. I said, oh, while you're here, we'll go to this. I'd heard the advert for the Southport Pistol Club.
Yep.
So we went out there, and my only experience of shooting guns was in America.
Yep.
We went to San Francisco. I was DJing there. And these kids that were chaperoning us around, they're like, oh, what do you want to do today? And we were like, can we shoot guns? And they were like, yeah, of course you can. We're like, pfft. So we were just there like all day. Yeah. It cost us like $100, and we were just, I don't know how many rounds, but they were shooting shotguns and magnums, but I just stuck to the 9mm. I just got really good with that.
Yep.
And so that's all I wanted to do. So I heard the advert for the Southport Pistol Club. I'm like, come on, Dad, I'll take you there. Yep. So we go there, and $120 each. You know, it's like we paid. We get in there. The guns are on a wire, so you can literally turn it left and right, and that's it.
Yep.
And then we shot 10 rounds, and the guy's like, did you have a good time? I'm like, what the fuck? It was just ridiculous. Yep. We were in and out in 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And
I think it's just ammo is so expensive here, eh?
Yeah.
Like like 308 round, rifle that I've got, like depending on the ammo, like can be up to, $3 a round, kind of, for ammo, and it doesn't go far. When you're trying to practice, it's all about the reps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Yeah. Right. So let's have a look at the.
Yeah. Sure.
We're getting a bit of a theme here, aren't we, Matt? We had a barrister's wig last week. Now we've got a rifle. Must bring toys. Yeah, you're only allowed on if you've got a prop.
So this is a virtual shot system. So so this is a gel blaster, first of all.
Yeah.
Now, gel blasters shoot little soft pellets. This is a gas blowback one.
Is this what you gave the Afghans?
Mate, it would have been safer. But what we actually make is the mobile app, and then also this mount that attaches to it. So the mount creates like a virtual site. It holds the phone in place.
So do you look through that at your phone?
Correct. You look through this, and so inside there, I don't know if you can see it, but there's there's like a VR lens.
Okay.
Because when you try and focus on the phone at really close range, you can't do it, and so the VR lens just enables you to focus on the phone at a really close range. And so what you do, I'll just start the app up.
Real-time demo.
Real-time.
This is gonna be shit on Spotify.
What could go wrong? Yeah, sorry, Spotify.
Switch to YouTube, guys, for the fuller experience.
So essentially, you just load the app up. I'm just going through the safety precautions. There's safety precautions because people are supposed to use this on live firearms as well, and so you just got to do the legal thing and warn people to.
Oh, so you can actually put that onto a real gun that shoots.
Correct. Yeah, you can. Right. Yep. So a real gun won't, it won't cycle the bolt. So you'd need to, cycle the bolt in between each shot to reset the firing pin.
Right.
But you call that dry firing. So dry firing is something that people have done, for ages.
Oh, right. Yeah. So you just use a real gun with no bullets in it.
Yeah, no bullets, and so the rifle just goes click. Do you know what I mean? And it can detect that click noise and fire a shot. But this one's a gas blowback airsoft rifle, so it'll actually make a little bit of recoil, kind of noise there or sound and a bit of movement. And I'll just turn it up. And we might get some false shots here because I've just adjusted that sensitivity. But if you have a go at that.
Do I need to set my gigs off? Will I be able to?
You should be all right. Yeah. I'll center the range. There you go. Right. So if you look through the scope, you see that little red crosshair on the screen?
It's just open Google.
Do you know where that's from? We've got advertising billboards on the side of the range, and if you shoot some of those billboards, it takes you to the billboard advertising website.
Just go back.
Yeah, if you just change the app back to virtual shot.
Oh!
There you go.
Is there other things I can shoot?
I mean, there is, but that's just on a static range at the moment. So you can move that target out to like 300 meters or bring it in close. There's like zombie levels and hunting levels and a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Oh, I need to borrow this. There'll be no houses getting sold. I'll just be sitting on this all day. Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if someone downloads the app from the App Store, but then what's the sort of process to get the scope? The
mount, yeah. So you really need the mount. I mean, look, you can make your own mount and attach it to a firearm if you want. You can download the app and use it, but we've put a fair bit of time into designing the mounts and getting that VR lens so you can get it nice and close.
Yeah.
So you just need to go to the Virtual Shot website. So if you just type in Virtual Shot into Google, it should take you there.
And then you just buy that separately.
Correct.
And
you buy that, and it has so when you buy the mount, you get like the Pro tier, which just gives you access to more ranges and different stuff. But
how did I do?
You did all right. I just quit it out of the range, but you did all right. You got shots on target, mate. And that was at 50 meters, so yeah, not too bad. But it's
under pressure with millions of people watching.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's it. You're hitting the target. So that's a good thing. Yeah. We've spent a bit of time developing it. So it's gone, a lot gone into it. There's, it's fully ballistically accurate. You can change it to any caliber as well. So, if you change it to a 308, and if you know your bullets, specifications like the muzzle velocity of the round, the ballistic system will actually adjust it inside the app. So you'll shoot with the same bullet drop that you would with,
So what about if you wanted to do like a sniper rifle? Can you do like real long distance?
You can't do really long distance on it. The way that the VR tracking system works, it's probably really only good out to about, I'd say 300-400 meters.
It's probably about my level.
Yeah, but there's guys shooting out to 2K. Do you know what I mean?
Actually, the guy I told you about who said he moved to Sydney. So he showed me he'd done. Forget that. Whatever it was impressive because I was trying to sort of map the distance. He'd said how far. So from the house in Eleonora, that I was selling, and the shot he'd done was which is like at the bottom end of Eleonora, was like almost to the beach.
Wow.
It was just ridiculous, and he bullseyed it.
You're kidding me?
It was insane.
Wow.
Not obviously with a real gun and a bullet.
Yeah.
It was mental.
It's a real art. Long range shooting's a real art. A lot of science to it as well. There's a lot of reading, like a lot of it's reading the terrain as well because they'll look at the way the wind's blowing and when you're doing that real long range shooting, you'll have different wind effects at different distances as well. So it's not just like the wind blowing left to right. You may have wind blowing left to right at the first 300 meters, but then like at 600 to 800 meters, it may be blowing a different way because of the way the land's shaped and that kind of stuff. And so
I have trouble putting for 10 meters.
Oh yeah, it's insane. Yeah, some of that stuff. So yeah, I was an okay shot in the army. I was never a crack shot or anything like that. But yeah.
So like if the gel blaster pistols they sell on Temu, you could just get one of them, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the mount system that we sell is actually like a 3-in-1 mount system. So this one here is our like Picatinny mount. So it attaches. This is like called a Picatinny rail. So it attaches to the rail there. If you've got a real rifle with a scope on it, we've got a scope mount system. So you don't have to take your scope off, which would then mean you lose your zero and you'd have to go to the range and re-zero the rifle. So it attaches to the scope and then sits the phone in front of the scope. And then the third mount that we make is a pistol mount. And so it attaches to the underside of the pistol, like the accessory rail under a pistol. And so you can actually use the same mounting system for all different firearms. And so you can use it on pistols, long guns, pretty much anything. So, yeah.
I think I might have to get it.
Yeah, that's good, mate. Yeah. I'll hook you up.
Nice. At least I'll save on shipping costs. You won't have to ship it. I'll just come pick it up.
Indeed.
Drop Eden off for a sleepover and pick up my mount. Awesome. And then you're sort of entrenched in the AI.
Yeah. So I got out and worked in the company for a while full time. We just weren't bringing in enough revenue, to be honest. And so I couldn't do that full time, and so I ended up getting a job with a company in the defence industry and doing software development for them. And currently I'm the Associate Director of AI and Technology for the company. And a lot of the stuff that we're doing is building, we build traditional software applications, but a lot of the stuff we're doing is integrating AI into traditional software applications. And so kind of when, the explosion of AI happened about 1.5 years ago, I just kind of saw it, was amazed by it. Not just as a consumer, just using ChatGPT, but also as a developer, looking at how we can integrate, that kind of technology into existing, applications. And so, so we're doing a lot of cool stuff there, kind of helping companies automate, large parts of their business. We even started doing some, work for Microsoft as well. And so we're helping them do a bunch of, cool AI demos stuff for some of their defense industry, kind of applications and that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool tech.
How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is Cyberdyne to actually...
Yeah, they call it... So there's a saying, they call it PDoom, and PDoom stands for probability of doom, right? And so people have, what's your PDoom, kind of where do you sit? Honestly, I'm 50-50, mate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. I think that it's
better than 80-20, I guess.
yeah. It's amazing the stuff you can do. I think with AI is amazing. I think the speed that this stuff is developing as well. Like I work with it every day, and I'm still struggling to keep up with the latest model releases, the latest technology, all the new frameworks that are coming out and everything like that.
I was thinking the other week, I had an idea for something. I can't remember what it was. I was driving along and then I just had an idea. Like, where does that come from? It's not there, and then all of a sudden it's there. Now, if AI is the accumulation of the knowledge of every human being ever, but what is it like? Because you can't explain, like the soul. You can't explain the soul. Like when someone dies, what happens, and different people have different views on that. Yeah. But like how ideas just appear.
Yeah.
But how is that going to work with? Because if AI is as clever as all the people have ever been, but is it as clever as all the people ever will be? Do you know what I mean? Like where do ideas? I'm not asking you to say where, but will AI have the ability to have ideas? That's what I was thinking.
At the moment, the technology I don't think can do that very well. Like it depends though. Like sometimes you'll have an idea, and the idea may have stitched together in your head from, your experiences with this industry and this technology and this kind of stuff, and then subconsciously, it's kind of mashed together and popped into your head. Like, could you have generated that idea in a deliberate process? I don't know, perhaps. I don't know. But AI is not very good at novel things, I think. Like, if you put it on a path at the moment, it can do that. But if you want it to come up with its own thing, at the moment, it's not great at that.
Yeah, I remember seeing Elon Musk when he went on Joe Rogan, and he was trying to show Joe Rogan the comedic ability of, is it Gronk or Grok?
Yeah, his AI.
And it was shit. Like it was, it was not funny at all. I think it was a bit embarrassing, really, because I think he thought it was going to be a lot better than it was. But it's like that was my thing. Is like, yes, it can do everything that we can do, but can it do everything that we are going to do?
Yeah, I firmly believe that yes, it will eventually get to that stage. And I think that it will come sooner than you think, to be honest. Like, I think that, like,
that's what she always says.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think just the speed, mate, of that it's getting developed is just so fast. Like, the latest model that Google dropped, like 2.5, like Gemini 2.5, which you can go online and use it for free. it's just insane. Like the stuff that it can come up with, the stuff that it can do. You know, like as a software developer, do you know what I mean? Like it's. I mean, I can, you know, do far more now than I ever could just like by leveraging these technologies.
Well, I mean, I must admit, like the other day, like there was an update on the iPhone, and then there's like now you know, you enable the Chat GPT. So I was in Notes, and I was doing the schedule for the show, and I was like, and I think I spoke into it, or did I can't remember, but I just put create a calendar for every Tuesday and Thursday for the rest of 2025, and then all there with the dates, and I would have been sat there like a twat, like for hours, you know, typing in.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. And you take that and you multiply it by you think about pretty much every single software that exists now. Like most of the big software companies are building, they call it MCP like tools. Like it's a specific kind of way that AI agents can interact with software. So a lot of software companies are building tooling to enable AI agents to interact with their software. So you think about every major software company that has a software product is now creating tooling for AI to use their software. So no longer do you need to use it. You just need to pass a general intent to an AI agent, and then it can do things like create those calendars or do all that kind of stuff.
Surely that must be a bit like, I mean, every Uber driver must know that they are just a placeholder until Google get the driverless cars in place, and then they're like, see ya.
Yep, correct.
And that's what developers must feel like. Is that
but everyone, mate, it's everyone. Like I think software developers are. I think the tools for software developers are moving so fast because a lot of people, when they build something, they're like, hey, what problem? I want to solve a problem. Do you know what I mean? And developers are acutely aware of all the problems they face in development. So there's a lot of tools being built for developers to make developers' lives easier. But I think pretty much every industry is going to be affected by it. And you know, you even look at industries where you're like, oh, a plumber. You know, a plumber will never be replaced because, you know, like computer programmers, it's all code and they'll be replaced. But you just need to look at the massive leap that's happened in humanoid robotics in the last 12 months. I don't know if you've seen like Tesla's like Optimus robot, and then there's about 5 other, you know, robots as well that can move around like humans, can like pick up eggs and put them back in cartons and that kind of stuff with that dexterity. Like I honestly think that in the next 5 years we will have, like, it will not be uncommon for people to have a robot in their house that will do their laundry, cook their meals, you know, do the cleaning. I'd pay for that, man. I'd pay $30,000 for a robot to do all that stuff over another car.
Yeah. Scary shit.
Yeah, man.
Will they be able to podcast?
You know what? Have you seen the Google's Notebook LM?
No.
You haven't? Right. After this, you need to go to Google's Notebook LM, and it's I think you can use it for free. It's a software where you upload any topic to it, right? And I think it was designed for students, right? So for students who want to study a topic, you can upload all your notes for a subject to this thing, like all your course notes and everything like that. It will go through all those notes, and it will do a number of things with it. You can generate quizzes, you can generate study guides, you can generate questions and all that. One of the things it does is generates a full podcast on your topic for you. And it's got 2 voice actors. And so it will generate this podcast with a woman and a man talking in full podcast style about the topic. And so you can upload, the idea is you upload all your study notes, and then you don't have time to read those study notes.
You just listen it back to
You just listen to it while you're on the train or, you know, driving your car to work and that kind of stuff. So yes, it can already create podcasts.
Can it do it in a Sheffield accent?
It cannot. Well, I mean...
and interject with crappy jokes.
Again, you just need to clone your voice, mate. So you need to go to, like, 11 Labs. You can go into 11 Labs and you can speak into it for about 2 minutes. And then it will voice clone exactly your voice. And so then you can just type text in and then it will speak it back in your accent. Probably won't get your jokes straight away, though. But, yeah.
No one gets my jokes straight away. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight. Thanks for that, Daryl.
Sorry, mate.
Well, it's been interesting hearing. I like playing with your gun. thanks for sharing.
That's all right.
and thanks for your time.
That's right, man. No worries. Great to be here.
I'm going to go home and look after you.
My daughter?
Your daughter and my daughter, yeah. I'll see you soon.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Sounds good.
pal.
See ya.
This is When I Grow Up with Paul Glazby.